with you in the Midlands, BBC Radio.
Call 0845 303 9303.
And with me in the studio today is a man who worked very closely with Elvis Presley, a man who was associated with both his movies and his live performances, and a man who knew Presley for 17 years or more, performed with Elvis on record, and even wrote a song for Elvis Presley. I just wonder what thoughts, 10 years after, go through your mind today, Charlie Hodge.
It's amazing, always to me. It has been amazing, the impact that Elvis has had on the music industry. During his lifetime, I was amazed at the constant impact that he had, and that it is still going on today. Elvis today is bringing into the city of Memphis in excess of $30 million a year. He's the biggest single industry in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm sure I hope you'll get over there sometime to go to see Elvis's home in Memphis.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But you'll be able to see what an impact he still has. And we know that he constantly is influencing the record industry. Almost every artist that comes out somewhere along the line has been influenced by Elvis Presley.
I was listening to Bruce Springsteen the other day, and he was saying how he had been influenced very much by Elvis Presley in his music and so on. But it goes right through all the artists.
The early Beatles were very much influenced by Elvis. In fact, John Lennon, if you remember, he used to wear a picture of Elvis, or one that said Elvis on it. And he said before Elvis, there was nothing.
Well, you were there the evening, which... perhaps a happy memory now, but you were there the evening where the Beatles actually met Elvis, weren't you?
That was
up in Beverly Hills.
Yes, that was in the Perugia Way house, I remember. It was a round house. Before they made a big center den out of it, you used to be able to walk all the way around the garden on the inside of the house.
They sang together, did they?
Yes, they did. We had an electric bass there, a Fender bass, and a Fender amplifier, and had some acoustic guitars, and... John and Paul and George and Ringo came in with their manager. There were no cameras, no recording equipment of any sort.
Somebody says there were recordings made.
No, there was not. There wasn't any recordings. I mean, if anybody does anything like that, it's a manufactured piece of business.
You were there?
Yes. What happened is, they came in, and then there was this shyness. There's Elvis Presley. And then there's Elvis, there's the Beatles, and so to kind of break the ice, which Elvis was wont to do when there were people around, he knew that really he was the center of attraction. Somebody has to break the ice. And he said, well, if you guys are just going to sit around and look at me, I'm going to bed. Well, everybody laughed, and that started everything. And then everybody sat around and talked, and then at times, like George wanted to go outside and get some fresh air, so a couple of us walked outside with him. Mainly Paul and John stayed in with Elvis. And then they got the guitars, they sang a little, played a little bit, talked about the business, different things, and I know the Beatles, I remember them saying how comfortable it was to be around a group of people who didn't want anything. Right. Which was, like we were with Elvis, we didn't want anything from the Beatles. We was happy to see them because we were fans, as Elvis was a fan of the Beatles. Elvis really enjoyed the early things. It was only after he still liked the Beatles, but he didn't really go much for the acid rock.
Yeah, the psychedelic music of the late 60s.
Elvis was more, he liked the basic rock and roll. It's funny, Elvis never felt that rock and roll was stereo. He didn't. He said rock and roll is not a stereo sound, it's mono. It should come directly at you.
Phil Spector said that as well.
Did he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to mono. I mean, in some ways, some of the beauties of the old records are that they are mono. And what used to annoy me about the record companies was they used to reprocess stereo.
Yeah.
And it sounds terrible. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it just sounds terrible. Yeah. Absolutely terrible. Now, moving on a little bit, you were there the day Elvis died, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of mood was he in that day?
Well, before... that morning, we had gone to the dentist, and Billy Smith, his cousin, and I had been joking with him and laughing a lot, and everything was normal. He was in a good mood. He was wanting to add some new songs to the show. So he was thinking, about positive things.
Can you remember what those songs were?
No, he gave me a list, which I called to Felton Jarvis, his producer. And then Dick Grobe came down later after I was going to bed, and he came down with another list, and I had to call and give him the other numbers. And I remember, because like Dick came back the next day and said, or a couple of days later said, do you still have that list? And I said, yes. He said, do you mind if I keep it as a keepsake? I said, no, it's in there by the bed. Go get it. I hadn't touched it. It was still laying in by my bed. But everything was normal. Everything, he was looking forward to the tour. Like I said, he was wanting to add songs. He was looking forward. He was wanting to make a European tour. He wanted to come to England. That's one of the reasons he bought that big 880 Convair. He said, I bought my own plane. One of the reasons I bought it is so I can go to foreign countries and I can fly on my own plane, not have to fly in some airlines thing and be trapped in terminals.
Right. Well, I know that he particularly wanted to come to Britain, but also to go back to Paris and perhaps to Germany and so on.
Yeah, he wanted to do the whole scene. He knew how big his fandom was in Europe. I mean, we had so many airlines that had been chartered with nothing but Elvis fans on them to come to Las Vegas and different places.
Was that the official Elvis Presley fan club, the one?
Yes.
European Commonwealth.
Yes.
Todd Slaughter's.
Todd Slaughter, yeah, and before Todd was Albert Hand.
Yes, dear old Albert Hand.
Yeah, and in fact, I remember one year they chartered a plane and came over there, and Elvis gave them a tandem. Which
that's right. That's the way it is.
They sold chances on it, and it went to charity.
That's right.
And Todd's still doing a great job with the Elvis fan clubs.
Yeah. He's, of course, the secretary of the official Elvis Presley fan club here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So Elvis had no idea. He felt pretty optimistic about that time, that evening.
Yeah, he, in fact, I thought he was going to bed. He had said he was. And then he later went down and played a little racquetball.
Mm-hmm.
And played piano some, I think, because he had a piano down there in the racquetball court. And then he went up and was supposed to go to bed. And I had taken a book up to him that Larry Geller had brought in that Elvis had me call Larry and asked him to get a copy of. It was called The Shroud of Turin, Italy.
That's right.
And I had taken it up the evening before and left it there. And he had been reading it. That was found beside his body when we found it.
Yeah, I read that too. I've read the book as well. An interesting book.
Yes, it is. Well, Elvis, Elvis liked to read things about biblical figures, and he had a great number. There was a time when we carried trunks of books with us when we were traveling across country doing the movies, and Elvis really became a self-educated man, reading so many books, and was very knowledgeable on a great many subjects. I don't think that many people even around Elvis knew how intelligent he was.
And one gets the opinion, I think probably a lot of these opinions are drawn from the movies in the 60s, which were, to many, except the dedicated fans, and I am a dedicated Elvis fan, as our listener knows, but some of the movies were a bit banal. They didn't do credit to him.
Harem Scarum, for instance.
Harem Scarum. I mean,
he did do some marvelous things like Tickle Me, and
I like Tickle Me.
Light comedy, which
Follow That Dream was.
He was a bit like if anybody could compare Elvis to someone older, an actor, so I would say that he had a light comedy flair, much like that of Cary Grant.
Yes, he did. He did.
Because he was this incredibly beautiful man, and Cary Grant in his time was a very good-looking man. Still is to this day. When you see him,
Love in
Las
Vegas, or Viva Las Vegas, to give it the USA title. I mean, that movie with Anne Margaret, a lot of humor also. There was a bit of a catalyst. There was a marvelous atmosphere about that movie.
There's an interesting story there. It's just a short thing for me to throw in. Is Annie was doing the picture, and I had done a scene where my shadow was on the wall, and it's the only thing I'm in the picture is my shadow. And as a musician, they didn't want to show a whole band, so they had two of us with our shadow on the wall, and we were the band. And I said, Annie, I'm leaving. I said, I'll see you in about a month. She said, where are you going? And I said, Elko, Nevada. She said, the Commercial Hotel? I said, yeah. She said, I was working there 3 years ago when I was a band singer.
Good Lord.
And it was a little cow town, and I mean real cowboys. They had the manure on the boots and everything. Come stand along the bar. The bar was like 15 foot long and 4 foot deep. The band was in a straight line.
Can we expect to see you back in Britain? I mean, probably when this is being broadcasted, you'll probably be back home in America. Whereabouts in America do you live?
Decatur, Alabama is my home. someday I hope to move to the Caribbean, somewhere like that, where it's a bit warmer in the wintertime. But I think I've found really a second home in England.
Well, we feel really a warm welcome, and in fact, you are a true gentleman. I mean, all the people I've met with you so far, in fact, have taken you to their heart, frankly.
When I was in Norwich a few months ago, they did an article on me in the paper, gave me a whole page, and I was on BBC One radio and also television. And the people in Norwich, they're really nice. Without being introduced to them, I'd be in a pub. I'd go in a pub and somebody'd come up and say, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, just having myself a little beer," And then they wouldn't come and question me or anything. It was just a friendly greeting. And then it began to happen all over Norwich, and I found them quite well known, But it's nice.
A second home.
Oh, well, Hodge is an English name. I always like to bring that up and
well, your ancestors are come from it.
Come from good stock.
Come from good stock.
Yeah.
Now, I read the book Me and Elvis, which should be out now in the UK. It is available imported into the UK, and I will give the information out a little later in the programme if you want to obtain a copy of it. I recommend you read it. It's a lovely book, and I hope it's going to get published in the UK rather than have to pay the imported price.
I hope it is too.
Yeah, I hope so.
I was a little earlier. I was speaking to someone, and they were asking me, "My God, what are you going to do with all this money that you're making off the book?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm making that much."
The Caribbean.
But any money I make goes to the Charlie Hodge Home for Charlie Hodge.
Honesty will out, as we say. Now, reading the book, on a sort of bit of a sad note, really, but I read that it was the first time I've actually seen it in print. I'd heard it on the grapevine, but Elvis did actually have cancer.
I was after Elvis's death. I was over visiting Elvis's father.
Vernon.
And Elvis's physician, who was Vernon's doctor at the time, his father, came in, and he told me at the time, said, "Charles, this is in strictest confidence." And it was just the three of us in the room there, in Mr. Presley's home. And he said, "Mr. Presley, during the autopsy, we discovered that Elvis had bone cancer, and it had spread all over his body," which was the first I knew about it. But Elvis had, which I think you'll read in Larry Geller's book, mentioned to him that he thought he had cancer. And also, then he said, "No, I'm just joking." And then he said the same thing to Kathy Westmoreland and didn't joke about it. He never mentioned it to Billy Smith or myself or to Joe Esposito or Jerry Schilling, any of the rest of the guys that Elvis considered his friends, to my knowledge. But, yeah, that was my first knowledge of it.
Well, we have to sort of part company now, really. But have you got a favourite Elvis track to leave with the fans in this, of this day? Is there a favourite Elvis track you like to play on this special day?
Well, let's see.
Anything you like. Anything you like.
I'm partial to His Hand in Mine.
All right. Here is His Hand in Mine, and thank you for being our guest, Charlie.
Thank you.
Charlie Hodge. And be back soon.
I will.